Yesterday was the 9th of May, the most important day in Russia, Den Победы or Victory Day, and the biggest, the most grandiose parade happened in Moscow. Except it wasn't. It was kind of pathetic actually. And in this video we'll analyze the parade. But before we do that, there is very bad news for Russia from Bakhmut and great news for Ukraine from Bakhmut. Ukrainian forces have counterattacked in Bakhmut and taken back a few square kilometers of ground, making one of the Russian units flee the scene and destroying an entire Wagner unit. Let's immediately watch the report.
Слава Україні! Доповідаю. В результаті наступальних дій 3-ї окремої штурмової бригади Збройних сил України розгромлені підрозділи 72-ї бригади Російської Федерації. Фактично повністю знищені 6-та і 8-ма роти даної бригади. Розбита бригадна розвідка. Знищена значна кількість бойових броньованих машин.
That is one of the biggest Ukrainian successes in Bakhmut in the last 6 months. And I think it's no coincidence it happens around 9th of May. It's a huge blow to the Russian morale and war effort.
Захоплена значна кількість полонених. Так званий 3-й штурмовий загін ЧВК «Wagner».
Of course, the 3rd assault unit of Wagner, Prigozhin made a video about that, we're gonna watch that later, and he claims that the Russian units fled the scene, they ran away from their positions, and that is why Wagner unit got destroyed. This small localized Ukrainian counteroffensive already puts Wagner against the Russian Ministry of Defense very strongly, because Prigozhin accuses the Ministry of Defense because of this Ukrainian victory. Doesn't even need to be big victories for the Russians to start infighting. What happens if Ukrainians take back huge vasts of land?
Поніс великі втрати. Наступальні дії велися в смузі шириною 3 кілометри і глибиною 2 кілометри 600 метрів. Вся дана територія повністю звільнена.
I apologize for pausing so much, but every information here is extremely important. For example, 3 kilometers times 2.6 kilometers. It's a big area. It took a few months for Wagner to occupy such an area, and now Ukrainians took it back in one day.
Від російських окупаційних військ до бійців 3-ї штурмової бригади. Для мене велика честь битися поряд з вами, служити разом з вами, командувати вами. Ви справжні бійці, справжні герої, які показали, що таке український бойовий дух. Слава Україні!
Such great news immediately after the 9th of May parade. Now I want to stress this is a localized counteroffensive, it's a localized victory for the Ukrainians, of course very great, and it contributes to the Wagner versus Ministry of Defense infighting. Again, seen reports on Western military bloggers claiming this is the counteroffensive, Russian lines collapsed. It's localized, it's great, but the Russian lines are holding. There is no sign of their retreat or collapse or mass panic anywhere, unfortunately. I'm sorry if you wanted to hear this message. Keep a cool head while reading this news. If Russia's aggression becomes reality, it will have dire effects around the world and on every one of us. After all, the invasion of Ukraine sent prices for essentials like fuel and food soaring. But that's far from the worst of its effects. At the same time as prices rose, people lost nearly $7 trillion of personal wealth. Even the most classic strategies for growing your money, like investing in stocks and bonds, lost people anywhere from 15 to 25% last year. Now, McKinsey reports the biggest financial institutions are changing course, putting 30 to 50% of their assets into alternative assets, outside of just stocks and bonds. Alternatives like fine art, which major banks already offer advisory services for. But thousands of you and myself have already been investing in art for the last year thanks to Masterworks. With Masterworks, you're investing in real, physical paintings qualified with the SEC. And all fillings are linked in the description. As I said, thousands of you are part of their 650,000 plus users, which means thousands of you might have enjoyed Masterworks' incredible results last year. Over 25.8 million handed back to investors from 9 paintings sold, with each sale returning over 9% net. They've even sold works to start off 2023 as the banking system collapsed and other investments fell even further. No wonder Masterworks' new offerings have sold out in less than an hour. But using the link below means your account will be preloaded with special access. What better way to continue than to bring Prigozhin into it? It was one of his unit that was decimated, annihilated entirely. Let's hear his version of the story. In this story there are three versions. The Ukrainian version, the Prigozhin version and the Ministry of Defense version.
Поэтому у нас армия бежит. Бежит, потому что 72-я бригада сегодня просрала 3 квадратных километра, на которых у меня погибло порядка 500 человек, потому что это был стратегический плацдарм.
It was a bridgehead. They mean it was over the Bakhmutska river. Through Bakhmut it goes a river. It's more like a small stream. Small water body that is not very hard to cross, but Ukrainians have set up defensive lines on that river and Russians had a few bridgeheads over it and now they lost one of it. That was the square kilometers liberated this Russian bridgehead. A very important location to be lost.
Они просто взяли и драпанули. А как вы слышали, факел, голубой факел, анальный факел, такой специальная пробочка в жопу, они
Oh my god. Yeah, he is so salty about everything. He's mad about everybody.
в жопу. Они разбежались точно так же, как и 72-я бригада. Это факт.
In the last month, Prigozhin has been entirely negative viewing in the future, talking about the Ukrainian counteroffensive and how effective and scary and strong it will be, blaming the Ministry of Defense. I think he has understood what is the outcome for the Russian forces. He might have started to see the picture, that they have no chance. And it's starting now. This is just the first of many localized counteroffensives, counterattacks that will make up this one great offensive to liberate Ukrainian grounds. Not 2-3 square kilometers, we're talking about hundreds, up to 1,000 and more square kilometers. And it starts with these small localized victories. There's another one from Prigozhin, going back to his old routine. I mean, for a moment, for 2-3 days it was all fine when he claimed he got the ammunition. Now he's back to his old routine.
Мы запрашиваем на декаду 7200 единиц. Нам на декаду дают 1600 единиц. Следующее, 7200, 750, 960, 60. Сегодня утром начальник Генштаба лично поправил все циферки и уменьшил их в 10 раз. Это очень нехорошо. Если так будет продолжаться, то мы не сможем воевать. Если все задачи выполняются ради того, чтобы обмануть верховного главнокомандующего, либо верховный главнокомандующий вам жопу порвет, либо русский народ, который очень будет расстроен, если война будет проиграна. Поэтому пока вот такая ситуация. Если завтра что-то решится,
In another video, Prigozhin ranted again about the Minister of Defense and he called Putin personally an old grandfather in Moscow, an old happy grandfather in Moscow lecturing the people when Wagner troops are dying in Bakhmut. So in the first time in however long I have analyzed his videos, I've never seen him go straight against Putin, and in that video he did. So he crossed one of the lines, one of the barriers that have not been crossed yet. Let's see where does it conclude, but we can see the infighting being taken to another level. Putin's talks turning straight against Putin. Let's see where does it lead us. Now we get to the parade. Yesterday was 9th of May. Let's watch how the parade went. Okay, this T-34 you see right here, it is the only tank taking part in the parade. Only tank. This parade was incredibly pathetic. There was only one tank and there was only 8,000 soldiers marching. Usually there's well over 10,000 plus. We can analyze from that that Russia is seriously lacking equipment to be shown off on this parade.
Сегодня цивилизация вновь находится на решающем переломном рубеже. Против нашей Родины вновь.
The war has once again been waged against our homeland. Putin is tying this Russian-Ukrainian war with the Second World War, that they're again defending their homeland, trying to make this bond there between those two wars, because Second World War has become very sacred for the Russians. It's almost like a religion. So Putin is trying to connect those wars, but there's no connection whatsoever between the Second World War for the Soviet Union and the Russia-Ukrainian war. No, No connection. Even the Russians don't believe it. He doesn't talk one word about NATO. He mentions the special military operation, not war, special military operation, because in autumn, when he declared mobilization, it hit back very painfully. Russia lost about 1 million people who went abroad. Putin's ratings dropped like a stone. Now, he needs another mobilization very fast, but he's afraid to do it. He even is afraid to say the word war. That's the only tank, the only T-34.
За Россию, за наши доблестные вооруженные силы, за победу! Ура!
Okay, for a victory for our troops fighting, and then immediately they lost this area in Bakhmut. The leadership in Moscow is not connected at all to the realities on the ground. A very small amount of foreign leaders were present. The only one who RSVP'd was Lukashenko and the leader of Kyrgyzstan. Of course, they were present, the leaders of Kazakhstan and Armenia. Also, they arrived at the very last minute and they didn't RSVP. Plus, Lukashenko looked really off. His hand was in bandages and they had to walk, all of them, the leaders had to walk 300 meters to put flowers onto the monument of the unknown Soviet soldier. Everybody walked except for Lukashenko, who had to be driven that 300 meters because he couldn't walk. He was so out of it. And later, when Putin and all of the leaders were supposed to have the dinner, which they do in every 9th of May, Lukashenko didn't attend that. He left, and he is the closest ally to Russia. It all looked very pathetic and very boring, honestly. This is the video of the Russian ambassador in Poland, in Warsaw, trying to deliver flowers to the Soviet monument, but he couldn't because the Polish crowd blocked him. They couldn't allow him to pass. And I'm all for it, of course. These monuments, they praise a regime very similar to what Russia is today, and for Poland this is pain, pure pain from the past. Of course, don't let him pass. I've talked many times about how Russia has lost initiative in the information war a long time ago, but now they're slowly losing initiative on the real battlefield. Ukraine is still the reactive side. If we take out the today's victory for Ukraine, usually it's Russia who attacks and assaults and Ukraine defends and reacts. But now that is slowly changing. Russia is feeling it, and what do? Well, they cannot do anything because there's nowhere to escalate this war. They don't have some magic cards in their pocket. So they're just striking with missiles and drones more often. Almost daily for 3 to 4 days and nights, Russians have been attacking Ukrainian cities with missiles and Iranian drones. For example, on the 9th of May, they attacked Kiev with 15 missiles, all of which were shot down because Kiev is one of the best air-defended cities in the Europe area. What do these strikes do? Nothing military-wise, because Ukraine doesn't suffer through them because they're mostly directed to civilian population, which is incredibly sad. But they don't give any military edge to Russia or take anything away from Ukraine. But what they do is Western media is always talking about them, making it look like Russia is making the moves and Ukraine is suffering and reacting. It's a pathetic attempt to get initiative back on your hands, but it's an illusion. They're running out of missiles, and the missiles fired or produced a few months ago or a few weeks ago. We can deduct from that they're making them now, shooting them out, and then waiting for another batch to come out of the factory. They don't have any reserves anymore. This doesn't give them any real initiative. USA has declared another aid packet to Ukraine in the size of 1.2 billion USD. A lot of money again. I'll read it to you. Additional air defense systems and munitions, equipment to integrate Western air defense launchers, missiles and radars with Ukraine's air defense systems, ammunition for counter-unmanned aerial systems, 155mm artillery rounds, commercial satellite images services, support for training, maintenance and sustainment activities. In this packet, I think the most important is 155mm rounds. Ukraine is in huge deficit of artillery rounds. So is Russia, but for the counteroffensive, where Russia will be the defending side, Ukraine will need a lot, 10 times more rounds than they have. So if any country could send anything to Ukraine right now that they need the most, it would be the artillery rounds. Look at these photos. This is the armament of the newly created Ukrainian UAV strike companies. Ukraine has been massing drones. Officially it's called the Army of Drones, and they have up to 10,000 kamikaze drones and counting. Of course, a few thousand of these are already active on the front lines and they're being used and new are being produced. And look at this, these very small ones here, they're first-person view drones. They're very fast and agile, and it takes a lot of time to train on these drones because you need to be good at maneuvering at fast speeds. It honestly looks like a computer game if you look at the screen and try to fly it very fast. Only the drone has a bomb attached to it and it flies in tanks, open hatches. If it's a good drone handler, these drones are incredibly accurate and fast. The small ones don't carry huge explosions, but you don't need huge ones to damage infantry. Damaging somebody's knee or ankle is enough for 3 to 4 men to have to carry them or leave him, which damages the morale. So these drones sting very painfully, although they're small. The next one you see here, I'm pretty sure these can carry up to 4 81mm shells, which are enough if dropped on a tank to make it immobile or destroy its armaments. And behind them you can see even bigger ones. Maybe these will carry 120mm ammunition, which definitely take out the entire tank with a direct hit. So with these drones you eliminate infantry and heavy equipment all the same. And this is one company. Ukraine has tens of these companies in reserves for the counteroffensive. This army of drones is going to be deadly when leashed upon the Russians. It hasn't been yet. Zelensky signed a decree where Ukraine as a country will now celebrate the 8th of May as the ending of the Second World War, whereas the Russia and the Soviet Union actually used to celebrate it on the 9th of May, Russia still does. Ukraine now on the 9th of May celebrates Europe's Day, which the whole of European Union celebrates. So this is another step, small step towards the European cultural space and away from the Soviet past. 9th of May now in Russia is not the memory of the fallen of the World War II on the Soviet side. It is more about Putin's propaganda. And of course, any country who follows the 9th of May as Dein Babedi is now part of Putin's propaganda, and I'm very glad Zelensky stepped away from it. In America, watching this might not look like a big thing, but every ex-Soviet country, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Ukraine, there are Russians who on the 9th of May red flowers to the Soviet monuments, coming to the streets, drinking a lot, provocating the police, trying to make themselves seen. Yesterday I was out in the capital of Estonia and I was glad to see there was a lot of Estonians celebrating Europe's Day. Ukrainian flags were out. The Russian issue in Estonia is over the years getting smaller and smaller, although it is still very relevant. I want to talk a little bit and give my take on the counteroffensive and how it should be done. Of course, I see the comments already, oh, you don't know anything, don't tell the Ukrainians how they should do the counteroffensive. I'm not telling anybody what to do. I'm just giving away what I think, how it should happen. Of course, I trust the Ukrainian leadership knows better and they do the better choices. But the thing is, Ukraine has enough armor and infantry to just push through tactics much like the Russians. Just throw it at any kind of lines and they will push through because they have so much. But the thing is, war will probably carry on after this counteroffensive. And the side that still has forces left after this counteroffensive will be probably the winner of this war. What needs to happen is very tricky for the Ukrainians. They would need to do this counteroffensive and they would need to be successful because otherwise they will lose the Western support. But they cannot lose their offensive capabilities, meaning they cannot lose a massive number of tanks, armored personnel carriers, infantry fighting vehicles or infantry doing this counteroffensive. Because if they do, even if they take back huge areas of land, they won't have anything left. They need to have a lot left after they liberate these lands. So pushing these tank columns and infantry fighting vehicles toward the Russian lines needs to be pulled off in a very perfect manner. Not losing a lot, but gaining a lot. That's what makes it tricky. What Russians would do is just to throw it all at one place and that would give them gained ground. Ukrainians cannot do that. They need to use decoys, send false information to the Russians, attack where the Russians are not defending good, because they cannot afford in the long term losing a lot of vehicles or infantry during this counteroffensive. Otherwise it will not be effective, even if Ukraine takes back a lot of land. If they lose their offensive capabilities, it's over for them for a very long time. Now don't take this as me teaching, take this as me analyzing with my infantry brain how I would do it. And it's incredibly tricky. This Ukrainian soldier has a jetpack. Yeah, make 10,000, put them on Ukrainian soldiers, send them over the Dnipro river and then straight to Moscow. Actually, let's open up this a little bit. It looks very futuristic and it's cool and I love it. What about the cost of it? Making one, training with one takes a lot of time and making one is incredibly expensive. Getting into it probably takes time and out of it also. If you fly into a position, what it gives you is speed and maneuverability and you're very fast. But then you land it, you have to get out of it and defend the area, leaving this very expensive rig to lay down somewhere. Maybe Russians will capture it. The second thing is that any soldier wearing this on a battlefield flying around is targeted immediately. It makes him a high value target and the enemy side will do everything to attack just that target. And the third thing I want to bring out with these, I want to say again, I love this, I love the idea of it, but the practicality of it is a question mark for me. What can this jetpack do that other cheaper solutions can't? For example, let's say crossing the rivers. One rubber boat that carries an entire squad, carries them over the river, or you would need 8 to 9 jetpacks to carry an entire squad over the river, which is, I think, 1,000 times more expensive compared to this rubber boat. Yes, you can shoot the rubber boat and it will sink, but again, you can shoot the jetpacks also, and they will explode or the soldier will fall in water and drown with it. So I think they're both as dangerous, only one is 1,000 times cheaper. Or let's say you use it in urban warfare, flying up to the roofs. It probably makes a lot of sound, and the dust and debris the downward thrust generates is so huge the enemy will see you. Even if you're maybe want to be a stealth sniper on a high-rise building, flying up there, the enemy will probably see you. So I don't really see much use on these military-wise yet, but I love videos about it and the idea of it and ingenuity of it. Mwah, love it. Bring it on. On this video you can see that on the 8th of May in Novosibirsk, which is far east Russia, and that's the territory of the Sukhoi aviation plant, the partisans of Free Russia, or Svoboda Rossiya, which is anti-Putin partisan movements in Russia, they burned down a Russian Su-24. They just walked up to it, made a fire like a campfire, like you would make a fire in a very peaceful situation, and you walk away and the entire plane burns down. The security is non-existent there because the guards are probably drinking somewhere or gambling because it's Russia. And you can just walk into a military facility as important as the military plane plant and set fire to a plane, which costs millions of USD. It never stops to amaze me, and I hope the Svoboda Rossiya partisans film more of their actions. Love to see it. These are pictures of Ukrainian Su-25 aircraft carrying unguided United States supplied Zuni rockets. This rocket was developed to both air-to-air and air-to-ground operations. It can be used to carry various types of warheads. For example, a warhead that explodes out 2,000 small particles, which is of course anti-infantry and anti-soft vehicles, or a warhead that just makes a huge explosion, anti-armor perhaps. This huge explosion, the heat warhead, penetrates up to 50 centimeters of armor. That is enough to take down any Russian tank. And Ukraine has those now mounted on their Su-24s. Thank you, USA. This has been it for today's video, my friends. If you like what I do, the Patreon link is in the description below. It is the fastest and the quickest way to support the channel, and as I have said, I have some new patrons and I want to butcher their names. I'm already itching to do it. Last time the names were kinda easy. Let's see if they can twist my tongue today. Jonathan Benton, easy. Peasy lemon squeezy. Kvidas Mikke Vikius. That's more difficult. Patrick. Linda Gardner, come on, hit me with something heavy now. Rick, okay, I give up. Next time, 5 new patrons who are tier 10 and above. I expect your names to be impossible. Thank you for supporting the channel, I really appreciate you. I also have Twitter, where 3 times a day you will get the most important news about this Russo-Ukrainian war. Link is in the description below. You can follow and I'll keep you updated about the most important. I also have an Instagram account where I'm putting up some gun content that I cannot put on YouTube, for example. I like to shoot guns, actually. I know some Americans are going like, oh, this dude likes freedom. Yes, I do. Go and check it out. Link in the description below. Until my next video, my friends. Slava Ukraini.